Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be spending some time on the EMC Partner AVI3000. We'll begin the video by going over some of the connections on the front and the back. Next, we'll go ahead and take a look at a few different setups. And then finally, we'll spend some time modifying criteria from the front panel display. The EMC Partner AVI3000 provides testing capabilities for DO160 Section 22 Level 3 and Mil Standard 461 CS117 Level 1. This model has the same testing capabilities as the newest model, the EMC Partner AVI3000. These test systems use the same couplers, the two of the most common ones being the CN-BT7 and the CN-GI-CI-V. As you can see on the left of the system, we have our CN-BT7 right there. We include this coupler with the AVI test system as it's used for the majority of tests. Let's go ahead now and let's take a look at the front of the AVI test system. Here's the front of the AVI3000. Let's go ahead, let's start from the left and let's work our way right. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the display. Below the display, we have the power button, USB port, and auxiliary connection. All the way on the right below the display, we have the trigger output. Working our way right, we have the rotary knob and start-stop button. And all the way in the upper right-hand corner, we have the emergency stop. Below the rotary knob, start-stop, and emergency stop, we have the AVI-WF3 plug-in. That should complete the connections on the front. Let's go ahead, get the unit turned around, and take a look at the back. Here's the back of the AVI3000. Let's start from the left, and let's work our way right. All the way in the upper left-hand corner, we have the AC input and the power switch. As we work our way right towards the center, we have the auxiliary connector. If we look directly above the auxiliary connector, we have the safety bridge, which will need to be inserted in the auxiliary connector for the system to function. Next to that, we have the EUT power input and fuses. And then finally, all the way on the right, we have our RS-485 interfaces. And below that, we have the Ethernet, EUT fail, and our trigger input. Let's go ahead now. Let's take a little closer look at the CN-BT7 coupler. Here's the CN-BT7 coupler, which is used for many of the cable induction and ground induction tests. When conducting testing, the cables are placed through the coupler, which can open using the two turnstile latches on the front of the unit. Let's go ahead now and let's walk through some of the connections. Starting on the left, we have the filter. Below that, the input 2, and then at the bottom, the input 1. The filter connections can be used either with the black jumper, which is currently in, or with the filter used for waveform 2 of DO160, which you can see just to the left of the coupler. The waveforms will require connections from the AVI system to different inputs, and the use of the filter or jumper as needed. Taking a look on the right side now, on the top, we have parking. Below that, we have monitor 2, and at the bottom, monitor 1. The monitor 1 will go to our shunt 0E1 during the calibration procedure. All right, that should complete the CN-BT7. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at a few different setups. Now we're going to spend a little time looking at the setup for waveforms 1 and 2 using the EMC Partner AVI system and coupler. These are based on the test setups and calibration guide made by EMC Partner, which I'll put a link for in the description below. Right now, we have the voltage calibration setup for waveform 1. Starting from the AVI system, we have the cable connected to the waveform 1 output going to the input 1 on the CN-BT7. On the right side, we have a differential probe connected to the monitor 2, A very similar setup can be used during testing with the addition of a current monitoring probe placed between the EUT and the injection probe. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the setup for Waveform 2. Here's the calibration setup for Waveform 2, including the shunt. You can see we have the output for the Waveform 2 on the AVI connected to the input 1 on the CN-BT7. Looking above the input 1, you will see we have the Waveform 2 filter placed in the input 2, and the jumper is removed from the filter connections just above that. Looking at the right side of the CN-BT7, we have the black jumper in the parking position, and then we have our shunt connected to the monitor 1. The test setup will be done in very much the same as Waveform 1 while keeping the WF2 filter in place. Let's go ahead now and let's spend some time modifying criteria using the front panel display. Here's the starting display on the EMC Partner AVI3000. In the center, there's the available waveforms, and below that, a brief description of the waveform and test. In the upper right corner, we have the home, and then just to the right of that, we have the drop-down menu. Let's start by taking a look at waveform 4. On the left, we have the different criteria, and then on the right, we have a diagram of the waveform. Along the bottom, we have the tabs for settings, level, and time. If we'd like to adjust the repetition rate, click time in the bottom right corner. And then the second choice down there for repetition, select that. Now you'll see that indicated on our diagram. Click it one more time. And this is where you can make adjustments to the different criteria. Let's go ahead now and let's change it from 3 seconds to 6 seconds. Now let's go ahead and let's hit OK. All the different criteria for each waveform can be adjusted in very much the same way as we just showed right here. Let's go ahead now and let's walk through how to add a coupler to the system. To do that, click the drop down in the upper right hand corner and select generator, which is the second from the bottom. From there, we're to go ahead and select the third icon down and then select change accessories. You can see on this drop down, both couplers we mentioned during this video can be selected. Let's go ahead and let's click the CN-BT7 and then hit finished. All right, that should complete the video today on the EMC Partner AVI3000. We began the video by walking through a little bit about the system, including the connections in the front and the back. Then we took a look at a few setups briefly, and finally, we spent some time changing different criteria from the front panel. We hope this video has been useful, and please keep us in mind if you ever need to rent the EMC Partner AVI3000.